Imagine the icy winds cutting across the fields outside Holtzwihr, France, on January 26, 1945, at exactly 2:20 p.m. Amid the choke and smoke, the roar of artillery, and the chaos of battle, something utterly astonishing was unfolding. Picture it, a single American soldier clinging to the roof of a burning tank destroyer, systematically halting the advance of an entire German company. These were not ordinary troops. They were the elite mountain warriors of the 2nd Gebirgs Division, seasoned veterans pulled from Norway expressly for this offensive, and yet here they were, frozen in disbelief, held at bay by a young man who could scarcely weigh 50 kilograms. Behind the German lines, 6 tanks, Panzer I-4s, and tank destroyers that had smashed through resistance all across Europe sat idle. Their commanders, stunned and uncertain, hesitated to move without infantry support, only to see that infantry being methodically cut down by one lone American. 250 men had marched into what the Wehrmacht's own tactical doctrines deemed impossible. One soldier standing against a full-scale combined arms assault. The numbers were brutal. 40 exhausted American soldiers pitted against 250 hardened mountain infantry and 6 tanks. By every principle of military science, the Americans should have been annihilated in minutes. Yet, for one unforgettable, impossible hour, 2nd Lieutenant Audie Leon Murphy would redefine the very rules of combat. The story of that extraordinary day began far from the frozen fields of France in the cotton fields of Hunt County, Texas. Here, on June 20th, 1925, Audie Murphy was born into grinding poverty as the 6th of 12 children to sharecroppers. Life's hardships came early and mercilessly. At 12, his father abandoned the family. In 1941, his mother succumbed to endocarditis and pneumonia, leaving 16-year-old Audie as the de facto head of his younger siblings. "If I don't hit what I shoot at, my family doesn't eat tonight," he once told his neighbor Monroe Hackney, revealing the origin of his uncanny marksmanship. The boy could bring down a running rabbit at 50 yards with a .22 rifle that would have confounded most men to hit a barn. Every bullet carried the weight of survival. Every miss meant hunger. Under such relentless pressure, Murphy honed a deadly precision that would later terrify German soldiers across 3 countries. When Pearl Harbor thrust America into war, Murphy saw a path forward: steady pay, 3 meals a day, and the chance to send money home. But joining the military proved another trial. At just 5 feet 5 inches and weighing 110 pounds, he was rejected by the Marines, the Navy, and even the paratroopers. It was only the regular Army infantry that finally accepted him on June 30th, 1942, aided by a forged affidavit from his sister Corinne, claiming he was 18. Fellow trainee Private First Class David Mouse McClure recalled, "We all thought he was a mascot at first. This kid looked about 14 and weighed nothing. Drill sergeants taunted him mercilessly, calling him baby. Yet there was something in those eyes, baby blue, yet as cold as winter on the rifle range. Not once did he miss, not once." Murphy's transformation from a poverty-stricken Texas farm boy into a lethal soldier truly began with the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, stormed the beaches at Licata as part of Patton's 7th Army, and there, under fire, Audie Murphy would begin carving his name into history. Picture the rugged mountains of Sicily, July 1943. Here, amidst olive groves and jagged ridges, Audie Murphy discovered a truth that would haunt him forever. He was terrifyingly effective at killing. The lessons of his rural Texan upbringing, moving silently through fields, using every contour of terrain for concealment, firing with unmatched speed and accuracy, had forged him into a predator on the battlefield. Near Palermo, when machine gun fire pinned down his unit, Private Murphy slipped around the enemy position with the stealth of a fox, tossed grenades to eliminate the crew, and then turned their own weapon against the retreating Germans. Captain Paul Harris took note, recommending him for the Bronze Star with these words, "This soldier displays a natural aptitude for combat that is extraordinary in one so young and inexperienced." The Italian campaign was Murphy's crucible. At the Volturno River crossing in October 1943, his squad was decimated, yet he stood alone against a German counterattack. Using a borrowed sniper rifle, he picked off 5 soldiers at over 300 yards, an act that earned him the Distinguished Service Cross. Staff Sergeant William Paulson later described Murphy's method. "Murph didn't fight angry. That's what was terrifying about him. He fought cold, calculated like he was doing arithmetic. See a German, eliminate the German, move to the next. No emotion, no hesitation, just deadly efficiency." At Anzio, the blood-soaked beachhead Churchill dubbed the Wildcat, Murphy earned his first Silver Star by destroying a German tank at point-blank range with a bazooka. By the time Allied forces invaded southern France in August 1944, Murphy had survived Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, and Rome. Twice wounded, decorated repeatedly, and feared by both Americans and Germans, he had become more than a soldier. He was a symbol of lethal resolve. During the drive through southern France, when his lieutenant fell in an ambush near Montélimar, Sergeant Murphy assumed command. With just 18 men against over 100 enemy troops, he held a vital crossroads for 2 hours, personally eliminating 15 Germans. His heroism and leadership earned him a battlefield commission to second lieutenant on October 14, 1944. By January 1945, as Company B approached the Colmar Pocket, Murphy was no longer the baby-faced recruit of 1942. Combat had carved deep lines into his youth, and he had witnessed most of his original comrades killed or wounded. He had personally killed over 100 enemy soldiers. The Colmar Pocket was winter warfare in its most brutal form, an 850-square-mile German bridgehead west of the Rhine, the last sliver of French soil still under Nazi control. Hitler had commanded it be held at all costs, and his elite units, including the 2nd Mountain Division, trained for Norway's harsh winters, were stationed there. For Company B, the situation was dire. In just 5 days of fighting leading up to January 26, they had lost 102 men wounded, and all officers except Murphy had been killed or evacuated. From a full-strength company of 187 men, only 40 remained effective. Murphy himself was wounded, shrapnel tearing into his leg 2 days prior, yet he concealed it from everyone. Private Anthony Abramsky remembered the grim scene. "We were finished, done. Most of us hadn't slept in 3 days. We lived on cold K rations when we could eat at all. Half the guys had frostbite. Our machine guns were freezing up. We'd spent all night trying to dig foxholes in ground as hard as iron. When dawn came, we saw our position strung along the edge of the woods with open fields ahead and knew we were sitting ducks." January 26, 1945, dawned gray and bitter, the air slicing through even the thickest coats. Snow lay 3 feet deep in places, churned by constant artillery into a moonscape of ice and frozen mud. Company B held the edge of the Bois de Ridvier forest. peering across nearly a mile of open ground toward the German-held village of Holtzwihr. Murphy had positioned his exhausted, depleted company as best he could. Just 2 M10 tank destroyers for anti-tank defense, and infantry stretched thin along the wood line. The stage was set, the frozen fields were waiting, and so was history. Imagine standing in the freezing fields outside Holtzwihr on that bitter January afternoon. Lieutenant Audie Murphy had established his command post in a drainage ditch, a shallow, meager trench that offered some protection and an unobstructed view of the open ground ahead. Field telephone lines snaked back to the supporting artillery batteries, his only lifeline against the storm that was about to descend. At 1300 hours, the German attack began not with soldiers, but with a hailstorm of artillery. Shells screamed through the air, bursting in the treetops, showering Company B's positions with deadly fragments. 30 minutes of relentless pounding made the men feel as though they had been trapped in hell for hours. Then, at 1400 hours, the attack came into view. Private First Class Donald Ekman was the first to spot them. 6 German tanks, pennants fluttering from their antennas, spread out like predators circling, and behind them, an endless wave of infantry, clad in white snow camouflage, creeping across the field like ghosts. Audie Murphy's first move was to call for artillery support, but he knew this alone could not stop the advance. The Germans were too numerous, too fast, too disciplined. At 600 yards, the M10 tank destroyers opened fire, but fatigue and freezing fingers betrayed their crews. Their first shots missed. German 88mm shells responded instantly and with deadly accuracy. One struck the rear M10 squarely in the turret. It erupted into flames, the crew scrambling in terror toward the woods. The forward M10, sliding helplessly on the frozen ground, became immobilized in a drainage ditch, forcing its crew to abandon it as well. By approximately 1420 hours, both tank destroyers were out of action, and German infantry had closed to within 200 yards. Murphy faced a choice that would etch his name into history. He ordered his remaining men to fall back to prepared positions in the woods, but he did not retreat. Instead, he ran across the open field, through artillery fire, straight to the burning M10. The tank destroyer was engulfed in flames at the rear, where the 80mm shell had ignited its fuel and ammunition. Black smoke poured from its hull, and the heat was intense enough to be felt 30 feet away. At any moment, the remaining rounds could detonate, turning the vehicle into a massive, deadly bomb. And then Murphy climbed atop it. He manned the 50 caliber M2 Browning machine gun, elevated and exposed, a single figure silhouetted against the smoke-filled sky. From that position, he had a clear line of fire across the advancing German formations, but no cover, except the billowing flames beneath him. Private First Class Anthony Abramsky watched from the edge of the woods. I saw Lieutenant Murphy climb on top of the burning tank destroyer while bursts of machine gun fire were heard. Pistol fire from the advancing infantry pounded the hull and treads. It was the greatest display of guts and courage I have ever seen. The M2 Browning was a devastating weapon in skilled hands, firing 550 rounds per minute with an effective range of 2,000 meters. In Murphy's hands, it became a precision instrument of death. For the next hour, he operated the gun with terrifying skill. Telephone lines kept him in contact with artillery, and he called in strikes perilously close to his own position. His combined machine gun and artillery fire formed an impenetrable wall of steel and fire, halting the German advance. Sergeant Elmer Brawley observed from the forest, The German infantrymen got within 10 yards of Lieutenant Murphy, and he killed them wherever he saw them, in the meadows, the woods, anywhere. The environmental conditions made his stand even more extraordinary. Frozen ground thwarted proper entrenchment. Visibility shifted as clouds scudded across the sky. Cold sapped strength, stiffened fingers, and left many men frostbitten after days of continuous combat. Yet Murphy held unstoppable, a solitary figure of calculated, lethal resolve. Imagine the scene. Lieutenant Audie Murphy perched atop the burning M10, the smoke curling around him, the hiss of flames and crackle of artillery filling the air. From this slight elevation, he commanded the battlefield. The tank destroyer's height gave him a perfect vantage over the German approach, allowing him to pick targets with deadly precision. His .50 caliber M2 Browning, capable of reaching 2,000 meters, let him engage the enemy at maximum distance, while the smoke from the burning vehicle shielded him from accurate return fire. The Germans were trapped in a nightmare of their own making. Their tanks, expecting to steamroll the weakened American lines, found themselves unable to advance without infantry support, the very infantry Murphy was methodically eliminating. Wehrmacht doctrine stressed combined arms tactics, tanks and infantry working together. Without foot soldiers to protect the armored vehicles from close assault, the panzer crews faced an impossible choice: advance and risk annihilation or retreat. Technical Sergeant Morris Wald, observing through binoculars from the battalion command post, recalled, "Murphy's fire was incredibly effective. He wasn't spraying bullets. Every burst was aimed. He was picking off German infantry like he was at a shooting gallery. I saw him cut down an entire squad trying to flank our position." By 1500 hours, after 40 relentless minutes, Murphy's ammunition began to dwindle. The barrel of the M2 glowed red-hot from continuous firing. The burning tank destroyer beneath him sagged as its tracks and road wheels softened in the heat. Yet German infantry pressed closer, closing to within 10 yards. Private Charles Owen remembered, "We could hear the lieutenant's .50 starting to slow down. He was running out of ammo. Some of the Germans must have figured it out too, because they started rushing forward." Murphy, undeterred, grabbed his carbine and began picking off the advancing troops with deadly accuracy. Then, at approximately 15:10 hours, facing imminent assault and nearly empty ammunition belts, Murphy made an extraordinary, desperate decision. He ordered the artillery to fire directly on his position. Lieutenant Walter Weisfenig, the forward observer, initially balked, knowing it would almost certainly mean Murphy's death. But Murphy insisted, "I'm giving you a direct order. Fire on my position, now." The first shells landed within 50 yards of the burning M10, tearing frozen earth into the air. German infantry caught in the open were obliterated by shrapnel. Murphy, still exposed atop the vehicle, was hit again. Shrapnel tore through his leg, his second wound of the day. Yet he continued firing the few remaining rounds in his M2. The combination of Murphy's direct fire and the deadly artillery barrage shattered the German assault. The surviving infantry, roughly 100 men, fell back toward Holtzwihr, demoralized and disorganized. The tanks, unsupported and facing increasingly accurate artillery, retreated as well. By 15-20 hours, after an hour of relentless combat, Murphy climbed down from the blazing M10. His uniform was scorched, his leg bleeding from shrapnel. Behind him, the tank destroyer burned on, ultimately exploding 10 minutes after he left it. The battlefield lay in ruin. German soldiers strewn across the snow-covered fields, an estimated 50 dead and many more wounded. The survivors were in full retreat, their officers unable to rally them. Murphy returned to the wood line where his men were waiting. According to Private Abramsky, he was unnervingly calm. "Scary calm," Abramsky said. He checked for casualties from the artillery, ensured his men were all right, and then, as if nothing had happened, sat down and lit a cigarette. The fury of battle had passed, yet the memory of that impossible stand one soldier against a company and 6 tanks would echo through history forever. Imagine, after all the chaos, the smoke, and the fury of battle, Lieutenant Audie Murphy standing calm atop the burning tank destroyer, his hands steady, his face unreadable. The astonishing precision and courage of that hour left an indelible mark on history. But curiously, almost no German accounts of the event exist. Despite meticulous searches through the Bundesarchiv, German military records, and veteran organizations, historians have uncovered no diaries, quotes, or POW testimonies describing Murphy's stand. It is as if the very intensity of his actions erased itself from the German narrative. Several factors explain the silence. Murphy's extraordinary defense had caused roughly 50 German casualties, wiping out potential witnesses. Wehrmacht divisional records were often destroyed in the chaotic final months of the war, and the rapid, demoralized withdrawal following the failed attack documented in American reports as a retreat under frustration and disbelief meant the Germans likely viewed the episode as an embarrassing defeat, not worthy of detailed recording. Operational records do, however, identify the units involved. The 2nd Mountain Division formed the primary infantry force, supported by elements of the 708th Volksgrenadier Division and the 285th Assault Gun Battalion. These were elite troops, veterans of Norway, Finland, and the Eastern Front. For such seasoned soldiers, the failure to overcome a single defender was a shock to all tactical expectations. The 2nd Mountain Division's war diary tersely notes on January 26th, attack on American positions near Holtzwihr repulsed with heavy casualties, enemy resistance heavier than expected. Such brief documentation belies the scene unfolding on the ground. Hardened mountain troops facing one soldier who appeared immune to fear, fatigue, or any instinct for self-preservation. Post-war German military studies, including Verteidigung gegen Überlegenheit, Defense Against Superior Forces, 1965, analyzed the battle and identified several reasons for the failure: overconfidence in numerical superiority, tactical rigidity once the assault stalled, and the collapse of combined arms coordination between tanks and infantry. Following Murphy's stand, the Germans never attempted another attack on Company B's positions. That night, under the cover of darkness, the elite mountain troops withdrew entirely, soldiers who had never retreated in 4 years of war, leaving without direct orders from their corps commanders. The psychological shock of being halted by a single American soldier far outweighed the physical losses. The consequences of Murphy's actions extended far beyond his immediate survival. His defense allowed the 3rd Infantry Division to retain control of the critical Bois de Rewrote forest, dominating approaches to Holtzwihr. The German failure to break through ensured that the Colmar Pocket was doomed. Holtzwihr itself fell the next day, January 27, 1945, to the 30th Infantry Regiment. Within weeks, the entire German bridgehead west of the Rhine was eliminated, removing some 50,000 German troops from the conflict and opening the path for the Allies' final push into Germany. Murphy's stand was not just a moment of individual heroism. It reshaped the battlefield, accelerated the collapse of a German stronghold, and became a testament to how courage, determination, and precise skill can alter the course of history. Picture the battlefield one last time. Frozen fields, a burning M10 tank destroyer, and Lieutenant Audie Murphy, the lone figure who had held off an entire German company and their armored support. His actions proved a staggering truth. No matter their training, experience, or numerical superiority, even elite German formations could not overcome determined American resistance. General Jean de Lattre de Tassigny, commander of the French First Army, understood its significance. The defense of Holtzwihr, led by the 3rd Infantry Division and epitomized by Murphy's extraordinary stand, broke the back of German resistance in Alsace. Murphy's tactics, the deadly combination of artillery and automatic weapons, reshaped American doctrine for the rest of the European campaign. French recognition followed. The 3rd Infantry Division was awarded the right to wear the Croix de Guerre. In 2000, a memorial was erected at the Holtzwihr battlefield, ensuring that generations of French citizens would remember the young American who helped liberate their homeland. On June 2, 1945, Murphy received the Medal of Honor from Lieutenant General Alexander Patch. Military citations are usually restrained, yet even the formal language could scarcely convey what Murphy had done. Alone and fully exposed, he killed dozens of Germans, held his position against repeated assaults for an hour, and directed artillery fire perilously close to his own location. Brigadier General Ralph B. Lovett and Lieutenant Colonel Hallett D. Edson, who had recommended him for the medal, emphasized that his courage had saved Company B from near destruction and enabled the division to hold critical terrain. Yet Murphy himself resisted the label hero. When asked why he climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, he said simply, "They were killing my friends. It was not a heroic act. I figured if one man could do the job, why risk the lives of others?" The psychological toll of that day and of his entire combat experience would follow him for the rest of his life. What was then called battle fatigue, now recognized as PTSD-haunted Murphy, with insomnia, nightmares, and hypervigilance. He often slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow or in the garage with the lights on, unable to endure darkness that reminded him of night combat. "I remember the experience as if I do a nightmare. A demon seemed to have entered my body," he wrote, recounting his experiences. His willingness to speak about these struggles helped inspire the creation of the Audie L. Murphy Memorial VA Hospital in San Antonio in 1973, 2 years after his death in a plane crash at age 45. His personal life suffered too. His first marriage to Wanda Hendricks lasted just 16 months. Strained by his PTSD, Hendricks later described him as two people. During the day, he could be charming, funny, generous, but at night, he became someone else. He'd patrol the house with a loaded gun. He'd sleep in the garage with the lights on because darkness reminded him of night patrols. Yet, despite these struggles, Murphy became an early advocate for veterans facing psychological injuries. In 1966, he wrote for the Saturday Evening Post, "I can't remember when I didn't have nightmares. They became part of my life like breathing, but I was lucky. I could afford doctors, medication, therapy. What about the veteran who can't? What about the thousands coming back from Vietnam with the same problems?" Murphy's effectiveness at Holtzwihr was magnified by the tools he wielded. The M2 Browning 50 caliber machine gun, designed by John Browning in 1918, fired rounds capable of penetrating 1 inch of armor at 100 yards and delivering over 13,000 foot-pounds of energy, enough to literally tear a human body apart. The M10 tank destroyer carried 51 rounds of 3-inch ammunition, 1,000 rounds of 50 caliber bullets, and 300 gallons of gasoline. When the German Audi shell struck, igniting the fuel, the fire reached temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That Murphy stood atop the vehicle for over an hour, exposed to flames and shrapnel, was nothing short of miraculous. He was quite literally standing on a bomb with a lit fuse. Audie Murphy's stand at Holtzwihr remains a testament to courage, skill, and the extraordinary impact one individual can have on the course of history. Picture the battlefield once more, frozen and snow-covered, with Lieutenant Audie Murphy at its heart, alone, exposed, and directing the fate of men and guns alike. The artillery he called in was as lethal as his 50 caliber M2, a perfect complement to his marksmanship. The 105mm howitzers under his control fired 33-pound high explosive shells over 11 kilometers, each blast with a 50-meter radius and shrapnel lethal out to 200 meters. Murphy's skill in adjusting fire to within 50 yards of his own position, dangerously close by any standard, magnified his combat power exponentially, making him a one-man army. Military analysts have tried to calculate the odds. With 250 German infantry armed with rifles and machine guns, 6 tanks with main guns and coaxial weapons, and roughly 10,000 rounds fired in a single hour, statistical models suggest Murphy should have been struck 15 to 20 times. Yet there he was, operating an 84-pound M2 Browning with violent recoil, balancing atop a burning, shifting tank destroyer, smoke choking his lungs while bullets and shrapnel raked the air around him. How could one human endure such conditions? Experts in combat psychology have wrestled with the question for decades. Was it his impoverished Texas upbringing, instilling survival at all costs? His hunting experience, teaching him calm, precise lethality? Or sheer circumstance, being in the right place at the wrong time for the Germans? Dr. Dave Grossman, author of On Killing, summarizes it as a perfect storm: technical skill, drive from hardship, emotional detachment from early trauma, and an overriding instinct to protect his men that eclipsed self-preservation. Murphy himself offered a simple explanation: they were killing my men. It wasn't about glory or strategy, it was personal. Even years later, Murphy reflected on the transformation the battle wrought. In a 1968 interview, he said, "People talk about that day like it was heroic. Maybe it was. But I became something inhuman that day. I turned into a killing machine. I felt nothing, no fear, no anger, just a cold determination to destroy." Audie Murphy's military record remains unmatched. 33 decorations, including the Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, and 3 Purple Hearts, plus 5 awards from France and Belgium, mark extraordinary valor. Yet his legacy extends far beyond medals. Decades before PTSD was widely recognized, he championed mental health for veterans. The Audie L. Murphy Memorial VA Hospital in San Antonio treats countless combat-related psychological injuries, and his autobiography, To Hell and Back, continues to provide solace and understanding to returning veterans. Murphy's story is woven into the fabric of American military culture. The U.S. Army Infantry School uses Holtzwihr as a case study in defensive operations, leadership under fire, and integrated arms. The Audie Murphy Club honors non-commissioned officers who exemplify the courage and leadership Murphy demonstrated. Master Sergeant Ronald Johnson, president of the Fort Hood chapter, explains, "Every generation of soldiers needs heroes, examples of what's possible when ordinary people face extraordinary circumstances. Murphy shows our soldiers that you don't have to be 6 feet tall or come from a military family to be a warrior. You just have to care more about your buddies than yourself." Could such a stand be replicated in modern warfare? Technology drones, satellites, precision munitions has created a transparent battlefield, seemingly leaving no room for individual heroics. Yet history and recent conflicts prove otherwise. In Afghanistan and Iraq, acts of extraordinary courage mirror Murphy's. Staff Sergeant David Belavia in Fallujah, Sergeant First Class Paul Smith in Baghdad. General Stanley McChrystal notes that while technology changes war's character, it cannot alter its essence. War is ultimately a contest of human will. Murphy's defiance at Holtzwihr, saying no to overwhelming odds, remains timeless. At the Army's Maneuver Center of Excellence, his action teaches critical lessons: the importance of terrain, integration of fires, and the psychological dimension of combat. Killing the enemy was not enough. Murphy had to shatter their will. His relentless, precise fire convinced the Germans that to advance was certain death. And yet, as the world celebrated him as America's most decorated soldier, the young Texan returned home to a different war, a battle against the demons that lingered long after the snow and bullets had vanished. Imagine the man who had stood atop a burning tank destroyer, bullets whizzing past, artillery tearing the frozen earth, and tanks looming like monsters, now haunted not by enemy fire, but by the darkness in his own mind. Audie Murphy, despite his unmatched heroism, carried invisible wounds that never fully healed. His widow, Pamela Murphy, who shared his life from 1951 until his death in 1971, described a man perpetually wrestling with memories of battle. He would wake screaming, reliving conflicts from decades earlier, yet he never stopped trying to help fellow veterans. The war never truly ended for Audie, but he turned that pain into purpose, transforming trauma into advocacy, establishing early recognition of PTSD as a legitimate medical condition. Through his courage in speaking out, thousands of veterans found the courage to seek help they might otherwise have denied themselves. On January 26, 1945, 2nd Lieutenant Audie Leon Murphy had already proven that a single determined individual could halt an army. His stand at Holtzwihr shattered German assumptions about American soldiers. These were not the pampered sons portrayed in Nazi propaganda. They were sons of farmers and factory workers, hardened by depression and hardship, capable of extraordinary courage when defending their friends. The near-total silence in German records speaks volumes. They could not explain nor fully comprehend what had occurred. They faced someone who was simply better at war than they were, a realization that cut deeper than any physical loss, striking at the very core of their warrior identity. Today, the fields outside Holtzwihr have returned to peaceful farmland. The scars of battle shell craters, churned mud, the blood of fallen soldiers have faded under decades of rain. Yet each January 26, a small ceremony is held at the memorial honoring Murphy's stand. French citizens, American veterans, and sometimes even elderly Germans gathered to remember the day one American soldier proved that courage knows no bounds. Murphy's story reminds us that heroism is not the absence of fear. By his own admission, he was terrified. True heroism is acting in spite of fear. When others depend on you, it is making a stand when retreat is safer, becoming, for a crucial moment, larger than yourself. That is why the Germans were stunned when a 110-pound Texan held off 250 troops for over an hour. They encountered something that military science could not explain, tactical doctrine could not counter, and overwhelming force could not overcome. The unconquerable human spirit, the boy who once hunted rabbits to feed his family, had become the man who stopped an army to save his friends. In war, as in life, that transformation from the ordinary to the extraordinary remains the most astonishing truth of all. Audie Murphy's stand at Holtzwihr is eternal proof that one person, at the right time, with the right motivation, can change everything